Namaskar and welcome to In Focus. No picture has captured the imagination like Bandit Queen, and no director has created controversy like Shekhar Kapoor. But the picture has touched on issues that lie fundamentally at the core of our society. What lies behind censorship? Where does a director's freedom of expression begin? Where does an individual's right to privacy end? Tonight, to answer those questions, I have with me the director of Bandit Queen, Shekhar Kapoor. Shekhar, your film Bandit Queen was censored and you were very vocal and aggressive almost in your response. But censorship is very common in India. Why were you so upset?
I wasn't upset. I gave him a choice. In fact, I gave him the choice that no other filmmaker ever will. I said ban the film. My stand was that there are kinds and kinds of films. And this was a kind of film that is made with a particular passion and a particular attitude. And I don't think that in Bandit Queen, you could cut any piece out without affecting the whole. I made a film called Mr. India where parts were cut out, and I never bothered too much about it because, like a lot of other Hindi films, it was a lot of things put together, and one little piece didn't affect the whole too much.
Surely that must be true of all well-made films. It may not have been true of Mr. India, but then were you being a little touchy?
No.
Were you being sensitive?
No. This privilege was given to Steven Spielberg. He said that you cannot release Schindler's List anywhere in the world if you censor it. So he gave them the choice, and India not only released it without a cut, they dubbed it into Hindi. And
was there discrimination in treating you differently?
I think so. And I think the discrimination came for the very reason that I didn't want a cut in the film. Because the answers that I got were, very often, privately and publicly sometimes, was that, but that's about another society. Therefore, the nude scenes and the frontal nudity, and therefore the sexual scenes and the scenes of violence are fine, because that's not us. And I'm saying that's precisely why I want Bandit Queen released without a cut, because it is about us. So and that's why you're cutting it, is because us, so we're just hiding things and pushing them under the carpet.
Are you also saying that because it was about us, the discriminatory treatment actually was more hurtful?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The discrimination was because it was about us. And you know, Karan, I'm a bit tired of the censor board. I'm a bit tired of the censor board, and I'm a bit tired over all the accusations that keep getting hurled at the Hindi film business industry, saying, well, actually, you know, you guys just run around trees, you guys just make these over-the-top films, and you never make any kind of real films, because if you really did, if you really made any kind of real films, we'd look at you differently. Of course we wouldn't cut anything.
So you're feeling cheated because you made a real film. Absolutely. You weren't running around trees and Bandit Queen.
Absolutely. And so I realized that all those years of lip service was just lies.
Okay, let's explore this business of the censor board and you're being upset with them. One of the central issues that I imagine lies underneath this censoring of Bandit Queen is the question of Phulan Devi's right of privacy. The fact that she didn't want her experience of rape translated into entertainment on screen.
Okay, now that's different from censorship, because there is nothing in censorship that has anything to do with right of privacy. Censors are supposed to look at a film outside this one particular issue, which is a separate court issue. So I don't think we should mix it because they're separate. So let me take this right of privacy. We fought a court case. Channel 4 fought a court case about 6-7 months with Phulan Devi, who came out and spoke about this right to privacy. A lot of the things that came out were, if you're a public figure and you decide to be a public figure, and you decide to sell the rights of your film for whatever price, and you say that you can make a film on my life, all right, then can you then claim rights of privacy?
Well, why not? She decided she wanted to have a film made on her life. She didn't realize that it would translate into these graphic images that would be intruding into her life. She didn't want her rape represented. She didn't want to be known and recognized just for rape. She has a right to change her mind.
Oh, sure, she did. But she took money. See, in the end, she won the case. Phulan Devi won the case. And the only reason the film was released in India was because she turned around and said, I saw the film, it's fine, release it. So the lady has to make up her mind, you know. You can't sell it and then withdraw and then sell it again.
But when she sold it, she sold the rights to a movie to be made on her life. She didn't realize, like other normal human beings wouldn't realize, that it would involve these graphic images that would be not just intrusive, but that would portray her purely as a rape victim. And therefore she has a right, like any other human being, to reconsider.
I think, yeah, sure. Of course you have a right to reconsider. But what you can't do is take away a person's, once you've said you can make a film of my life, you cannot become a censor on it. I cannot go to any person, I can't go to Mandela and say, I want to make a film of your life, and then I will not make the film if Mandela says, listen, I'll only allow you to make a film of life if I censor the script.
Why, Shekhar, do I sign away my life because I've allowed you to make a film on my life?
No, you don't.
So don't I have a right to object to the portrayal of me?
Yes, you do.
Isn't that all she's doing?
Oh, absolutely. But she gave us the rights based on a book, and there's nothing in the film that's not in the book.
She, of course, disputes the authenticity of the book, but that's a different matter.
That's a totally different matter. But there's nothing in the book that is not in, there's nothing in the film that's not in the book. I haven't read this new book, but all along while we were fighting that court case, there was another book being written on her. And
I suppose what I'm getting at really is not the issue of the book. What I'm really getting at is there a trade-off between a director's freedom to express and a living human being's right to protect her privacy? Because that's really the interesting moral clash that lies here, isn't there?
I agree. It is a great moral clash, but I think that if you have agreed to make your life public, okay, you must then agree that things will happen in that film that you will not agree with. Because you did not agree to a propaganda film in your life, okay? If today I say, all right, you can make a film in my life, Karan, I either have to say that you can only make the film that I want you to, then you can have the choice to say, I'm not interested.
No, but can't you say the opposite? Not that you can only make the film I want you to, but please don't make a film that only portrays me in one particular way so that I get branded as one particular type of person. That's really the core of her objection, isn't it?
That wasn't the core of her objection. That was the core of a lot of other objections of a lot of other people. But Bandit Queen is not doing that. This is something that I keep saying. Bandit Queen is a 120-minute film.
Okay, tell me something.
Now, let me answer that.
The reason I'm interrupting you is, when you say Bandit Queen is not doing that, are you actually saying that Bandit Queen is not just an autobiographical story, it's about a wider, more comprehensive, deeper issue?
Let me take both the issues. First, Bandit Queen is a 120-minute film, and if you actually count the rape scenes, they won't add up to more than about 7 minutes in the film. So, there's 123 minutes that is outside rape. It's all about other things. Now, I am not the kind of filmmaker that goes and brands and takes little placards and say, hey, now watch this scene, this is what this scene is about, or watch this scene. There is 123 or 113 minutes of the film that are about other things, that give a million messages. There's a message.
What's the message? That's what I'm really getting at.
Oh,
is the message
is.
of the film, in your eyes as the director, the wider, more comprehensive issue, more important than the autobiographical story?
Always.
Always?
Always. You make a film...
So it really is about a wider issue, not about Phulan Devi?
All films, all stories that are relevant take an individual story and put them in the context of a larger issue.
So really Phulan Devi's rape is a symbolic or artistic way of portraying something deeper, wider, more comprehensive?
The whole film is.
Then in a sense, if you say that, you're using her rape. That's another objection she has.
But it's not only about rape, it's about many issues.
But the point, isn't it, Shekhar, that in your eyes, the rape is an artistic and symbolic way of making a wider, deeper point. Her objection is that that rape is her. And she's being used to make a wider, deeper point. She didn't want to be. She wants to remain an individual.
No, I'm not quite understanding what you're saying. What you're saying is...
I'm saying that she was used as a vehicle to make a greater, deeper point. Her life and her experiences were artistically metamorphosed into your message.
So was Gandhi. So is any film that is a biography about anybody.
But it suited Gandhi, it didn't suit Phulan Devi.
Well, that's where the morality of the issue comes. If it didn't suit her, she should not have allowed the film to be made, number one. Number two, if it did not suit her, she shouldn't have allowed this film to be released.
But she tried very hard to stop the film being released for a while. When you talk about the question of she shouldn't have allowed the film to be made, it's very possible that she didn't know what sort of film was going to be made. Most human beings, particularly a Chambal former dacoit, wouldn't have any idea what would turn up on screen.
Oh, I'm sure what because she told me this. She said, I was expecting you to make a film like Kahani Phulwati Ki, which she also went against for a while. But that was a typical Hindi film in which she sang songs and made mythical statements, in which, incidentally, she actually was shown to have killed everybody in Behmai herself.
What you're really saying, aren't you, Shekhar, if I understand correctly, is that her ignorance and her naivety at the point at which she signed the film is no defense for objecting to the film later on. That's really what you're saying.
No. I'm saying that there is a point that if you want a film to be made on your life, then you have to give the filmmakers the choice that you can either say, I want a film that I want, or I want a film, you can make a film on my life and you give me so much money.
Even if you get used for a purpose other than one that you want to identify
Let's take it. What you're saying is, number one, I sell the rights to my film. I can either sell them conditionally, saying, I want approval over the script, or I can say, yes, you can. I, as a director, would never make a film where an individual has an approval over the script. I would have said, no, I'm not interested in making a film.
But you did. Channel 4's commissioning editor had a right of approval over the final cut of the film.
That was a theoretical thing. Ultimately, he did not object.
That's because you knew that he wouldn't, but he could if he wanted to.
If he wanted to, he could.
Let's pursue that.
No, but let me take it. Let me take it further. She almost won the court case. The question is, why at any stage did Poolan Devi then allow the film to be released in India? Who was pushing for the film to be released in India? Not I.
So you find weaknesses in her argument because she was contradictory in her manner. She objected, then she changed her mind, and if she's going to object and change her mind, then she's got no case.
No. I'm not talking about consistency or inconsistency. I'm saying there was a stage where she had almost won the case. Okay? I was never part of the case. I've never pushed that the film should be released in India. And then she allowed it to release.
Yeah, but that's not the point I'm talking about. The point I was essentially talking about was that she felt that her life and her experiences of rape, which she may not have wanted portrayed, were being used for a greater message. And that, in a sense, is what you were doing.
Oh, obviously. If I make, I'm saying this again, tomorrow, if I make a film on Mandela, why am I making a film on Mandela? Not because of his relationship with Winnie, but because of apartheid. Because people are important.
But that's the point. Mandela would be happy for his life to be used as a message against apartheid. Poolan Devi clearly wasn't happy for her rapes to be used.
Let me take that point. The rapes in Bandit Queen, these 7 minutes of rape in a 120-minute film, have been blown way out of context.
It's not the length of the rape. It's not even the accuracy of the rape. It's simply the use of the rape and a raped woman to make a point about something else that she's objecting to.
Bandit Queen is about the caste system in India, which is what the major problem with the film is in circles in India. Yeah.
So the humanity of the woman got overwhelmed.
No. Bandit Queen is about the caste system in India, all right? And it is about the position of women under the caste system. It talks about what women go through if they are low caste women. And it makes a point that rape is the greatest weapon which is used to dominate the lower caste.
It makes that point by portraying one woman's rape, and that one woman now has been identified in terms of rape, and that's what she didn't want to happen. She's not denying she was raped. She just doesn't want to be identified in the public eye in terms of a raped woman, and that's what the film's done.
Karan, no. The media has done that. Because what's happened with Bandit Queen is that the rapes have been taken so out of context. They've been taken so out of context that in all the discussions of the film, this hasn't happened abroad.
Okay. That's true.
So it hasn't happened abroad. It's only in India where they keep saying, but what about the rape scenes?
She's in a sense become a victim of the fact that she herself raised this controversy, and I accept that. I'm afraid we're going to have to take a break here for a moment, but I want to continue this discussion, Shekhar, and to widen it and talk about other issues that lie behind it. We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. In part one, we were talking to Shekhar Kapoor about censorship and the question where a director's freedom of expression ends and an individual's right to privacy begins. Now we're going to talk to him about some of the other wider issues that lie behind censorship. Shekhar, you've been through the censorship mill, the controversy mill. Your motives have been questioned, they've been doubted. I've even tried to doubt them for you earlier on in part one. Let me widen this canvas and talk to you about censorship per se. Would you say that your experience and other people's experiences point towards the fact that we're far too protective as a society, that we're far too sensitive about individual sensibilities, that at the bottom end of it, we don't allow individuals to judge for themselves?
I think in our society, we are an elitist society. We believe that we know what's best for the masses. I think the problem with India is that is one of the most elitist societies that I've seen in the world.
So censorship is a big brother attitude?
Yeah, it's an elitist attitude, that we know better. And one of the things that I keep saying is, as far as Bandit Queen is concerned, that the elite of India find it much more difficult to digest this film than the non-elite, because the non-elite, the people that I've portrayed in the films, are the people that live in the slums of India, live these lives. And because they live these lives, they're far more mature in the way they handle the film. But the people who sit in the censor board, they don't live these lives, and they find it very difficult to handle the film. They're engulfed with trauma and guilt when they see the film.
This is very interesting, this engulfing with trauma and guilt. Are you saying that that sort of Indian is a person who has now decided that all representations of female sexuality are pornographic and dirty?
I think there's a sort of Indian that wants to protect the structures of India, and there is a subconscious attempt to maintain those structures, which have...
Sound like a sociology book. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the elitist structures that have occurred in India, and a film like Bandit Queen threatens that in that person, and they're saying, no, wait a minute. What happens when this film goes down to the masses? How are they going to react? My God, you know, there'll be revolt. I mean,
it was a political threat that the film imposed, which censorship tried to squash.
Not political as in a concerted political attempt, but political as in an individual's reactions to this film. I mean, there have been places in India where the film's been released one day, nothing happened, and the local police has gone and banned the film and said, cut out this scene, cut out this scene, cut out this scene.
Okay, I accept that to a lot of people the film actually has a very invidious political content in quotes.
Yeah.
But I actually want to talk about a different aspect of censorship and our relationship with censorship, which is that it seems to me we have become a society that looks at representations of female sexuality as pornographic and dirty. In other words, we've become people who see something that's God-given, normal, natural, beautiful, and convert it into something that's pornographic and dirty. Would you agree?
Let me give you an example. One of the things I set out to do in Bandit Queen was to represent rape asexually, which is what it is. It is not a sexual act, it's actually an act of domination. And if you talk to people who have raped, if you look at psychological studies, you find that sex has very little to do with rape, okay? I decided to do it asexually, totally. The world over, all the rape scenes that I've seen are titillating, exciting, cinematic, okay? In this one very famous rape of Babu Gujjar, where you see his backside, I decided, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to do it at night, as it was in the script, because that would make it sensual. I'm going to do it in broad daylight, everything seen, everything except the woman's body. And I made a conscious decision to show, for once, not the woman's body, because you have come to accept seeing a woman's...
Don't you see what I'm saying?
So wait a minute.
You wanted to make it asexual, yet many people insisted it was pornographic.
Let me finish. And so what I did was, instead of showing parts of the woman's body in that rape, I showed parts of the man's body. Now, even when I was watching the film with some of the censor boards, they said, oh my God, that's disgusting. I said, that's the point. As if you saw the woman's body and not the man's body in a million films, you accept it.
Yes, Shekhar, but we're saying the same thing. What I really want to get at, however, is a little different.
Yeah.
We have become, and your film is a classic example of this, we have become victims of our own censorship. Censorship is designed to keep out the pornographic, to keep out the dirty. But what's happened to us is we see things that are meant to be asexual and interpret them as pornographic and dirty because we've lost the capacity, because of censorship, to see the difference between the two. Isn't that what's happened?
I think that's a little too deep. I think that we haven't lost the capacity to be pornographic or voyeuristic ourselves. We're consistently voyeuristic. We just don't want to represent it outside. We don't want to talk about it. That's what's happened. I think that we are a society of, you know, like every other society, sex is a problem. We just don't want to accept it. We just want to accept a kind of a cleanliness. And I think basically it's not that deep current. Basically, people here believe this is not the job of cinema. It is not the job of a filmmaker to try and expose these things. I was consistently told, well, why should a film talk about these things?
But isn't that partly because films haven't done it, and sometimes at least because censor boards haven't allowed them to do it?
Yeah.
So we have become, in that sense at least, a victim of our own censorship.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in that's kind of shallow sense, we're a victim of censorship. But the reactions to Bandit Queen, look, here's the difference between what you're saying and I'm saying. You were talking, when you talk about censorship, you talk about censorship as a body of censors, okay, that are making conscious decisions of what to allow and what not to allow.
No, I'm talking about censorship in that sense, but also in a wider sense in terms of a society's response. And a lot of people turned around in the papers, critics, etc., who said, this is pornographic, this is dirty, this is humiliating, this is an exposure of a woman's body for reasons other than those that are justified. And what I'm saying to you is that these are all views that suggest that as a society we have learnt that we can't handle female sexuality. We're frightened by it. We're frightened by something that's God-given and natural.
No, I don't think it's about female sexuality. I think, I mean, as far as the rape is concerned, you saw no part of the woman's body. You're talking about the scene where she walked naked. No, it's not about that. It's about guilt, Karan. We are not frightened by the female sexuality in Schindler's List. What happened? Nobody got up, nobody did a few huge things. It's because of this whole furor. It's not about the fact that you saw a naked woman. You've seen naked women in lots of films. Every day there are films releasing with naked women in them, Western films. It's because of the context in which you saw the naked woman, and because that context provoked in you a very deep subconscious guilt that you somewhere are responsible for these attitudes. You yourself have these attitudes if you're a man.
Are you really serious when you say that your film makes people feel guilty?
Oh, absolutely.
Are you really saying that most of the men who watch it identify with the Baba Gujars?
No. Most of the men who watch it identify somewhere with the attitudes that these Babu Gujars have. They may not have raped, but somewhere they've identified with kind of attitudes and have felt somewhere responsible that, oh,
how many women identified with Poolan Devi and how many actually said, Gandhi aurat thi?
All over the world, many women.
No, in this country.
In this country, masses of women. I've been to theaters, Karan. I had a 70-year-old woman walk out, a Gujarati woman at theater, came out, tears in eyes, holding my hands and said, "Ye film mere bachpan mein kyun nahi bani? Why wasn't this film made when I was young?"
But precisely, it's not because they identified with Poolan Devi, it's not because the men identified with Baba Gujar, it's because the film depicted a cold, hard reality, and they wanted that, not because of identification, but because they were rather fed up with the shallow superficialities of normal cinema.
No. It's because in widening the context of the film, how do you widen it? You go into the subconscious of characters, you bring a film down from its immediate narrative, down into layers and layers of subconscious and subtext, and in that subtext, you find the audiences, and that's the great attempt of the filmmakers, is that somewhere the subtext of your characters matches with parts of the subtext of your viewers. And when that happens, then if I have to put that back in logical terms, it's when men see in the subtext of the Babu Gujars and the Vikram Malla.
Unnecessarily Freudian in this explanation?
No. That's how we make films. So it's not Freudian. It's a very commercial reality for me. I make films and I get my audiences. Bandit Queen is doing extremely well in India because the subtext of the film has somehow related to the subtext.
It's not doing extremely well because it actually has been misinterpreted in terms of the inverted prism I'm talking about. People are seeing it as pornographic and dirty. It's not that, but it's being seen as that, and that's why they're running to see it.
No, if that happened, then they would run to see, there's a plethora of films. Why didn't they run to see Schindler's List, where you have 20 naked women?
Because it was foreign, it was Western, they couldn't identify with it. Bandit Queen is part of us.
Do you know what the distributors in India said when I first made this film, brought out with it? They said, this Shekhar Kapoor has gone a bit mad. Why couldn't he at least take an attractive girl and put her on screen naked? You know? The whole point was, it wasn't like, there was no beauty in that, there was no sexuality in that. So if it is a question of pornography, You go for sensuality. There's a difference between nudity and nakedness.
Okay, Shekhar, we're going to have to leave it there. The point that you really made is there's a difference between your film and others. I'll accept that. Thank you very much for being on the show with us tonight. That's it for this week. We'll be back next week with another guest, another interview, but in the same studio. Till then, good night.